Alright, we're skipping chapter 4 and going on to chapter 5, other structures. Engineering, industrial, shipyard structures, and the preservation terms of the building and the construction created with the shelter and form of the human activity arranged with the office, or quarters, and barracks, the hangars, the warehouse, and maintenance, and the shop of the traditional houses. The similar structures are not the only type of construction that should be preserved. The wide range of the facility, including engineering, industrial, shipyard, structure, ships, and equipment, and may have the equivalent importance as historically so are protected with the federal regulations. Historical structures objects would range from again with the pre-Civil War era through the World War II. For example, the dry dock number 1 construction in 1827 and 1834, but it's still in the daily use of the Norfolk Naval Shipyard, Portsmouth, Virginia, the nation's oldest shipyard, except for the replacement of the Kaizen. It remains built in addition with being listed on the National Register of the Historical Place. The dry dock have been designated a National Historical Landmark at the highest level of the recognition of the cultural resources. The greatest hammerhead with the crane with the Philadelphia Naval Yard is another outstanding engineering landmark with the ranks among the most significant in the country. And among the other significant structures of the World War I air, seaplane hangars, and the ramps were especially significant in relevation of the Navy roles for their early development in aviation. Other important historical structures, including dirigible hangars, radio towers, gun factories, and their cannons and guns, Quonset huts, and the World War II era. 5-2 ships. The preservation of historical ships is beyond the scope of the manual, but the most important to remember that the ship that may require the preservation treatment of the USS Constitution, one of the first 3 naval ships of the United States in 1797, the oldest commissioned naval ship of the world, the National Historical Landmark, the battleship of the USS Missouri, scenes of the historical landmark, the battleship of the USS Missouri, scene of the formal surrender of the Japanese at the close of the World War II, is in one of the several naval yard ships that have been listed on the National Register, decommissioned in 1955. The ship was retrofitted and reactivated in 1986 with the World War II submarine. USS Silver Sides, known in Chicago, is also listed. Other ships have decommissioned based and passed on the outside of the organization and agencies of preservation management. The Commodore George Dewey's ship, the USS Olympia, used in Molina Bay, and it's also in the Spanish and American War. During the past 20 years, there has been increasing interest in the maritime preservation generally, with a number of new public-private public programs. The federal standards of the documentation presentation of the historical ship and the historical American engineering record has Figure 5.1 shows the hammerhead crane at the Philadelphia Naval Yard. Have been published in detailed procedure for the recording of ship of the means of the measure of the drawing and the photographs. All pre-1946 ships should be evaluated according to the National Register criteria. The significant historical structure objects so that they are preservation of the puzzle may continue the use they undergo for the repair of the updating of the historical integrity needed to be recognized and protected with the historical facility and objective is taken out of service. The best methods of the preservation may be the mothballing to protect them from decaying, collapse, and finding of the new use of the historical structure. Equipment is not to be as simple as it is used in the historical buildings. Hangers, in the instance, may be made into the office of the workship without destroying the historical fabric of the building. And crane dry docks and ramps may not be easily may not be easy to adapt. The other purpose of functionally additional may be made in the care of the not taking the harmful historical integrity of the structure. The handling of non-traditional historical structures needed the assistant specialists in industrial engineering history of the industrial archaeological. Some intensive of these structures are best left in place and if they cannot be preserved or used. It is important to survey evaluate the new and traditional facilities in order to separate the use of the distinct cultural importance with some of the ones noted above, those that are merely old, less important because there are other better examples elsewhere. Since the especially hard to preserve the working in industrial facilities without change, this determination becomes critical. Historical preservation treatment may not appropriate for some of the significant structures because of their continually evolving use. The formal documentation must satisfy the regulation in such case. In other cases, historical integrity has been given loss, and so that they do not meet the National Register criteria, but the significant therefore need to not be considered for the preservation. In the case of natural emergencies such as the war of the natural disaster, federal regulations may be suspended. That the effects of the National Historical Preservation Act for the varying periods of the time. See Title 36 of the CFR 800.12. Chapter 6, Archaeology.